Welcome to Front of the Streets right here on KSQD 90.7 FM. I'm your host, Omar Dieguez, and today's show comes straight from the heart of our community. This is about our children, our farm worker families, our elders, and the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the land that gives us life. Today, we're talking about pesticides being sprayed near our schools and homes, and people rising up to protect our community, because this isn't just policy, this is life and death. And like I always like to start my shows, I like to always start off with a prayer to the Creator. Protect our children, protect our farm workers, protect our Mother Earth. Give us strength to stand up, the courage to speak truth, and the unity to fight for what is right. May love guide us, may justice protect us, and may our community rise together. Si se puede. And today, I have in the studio with me the beautiful Kathleen and the young gentleman Woody. And on the phone, we have Yaneli. Yaneli, are you on the phone line with us? Can you hear us?
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure to have all three of you here in the studio. These are some of the Central Coast experts that are coming all the way from Watsonville, Greenfield, to be here with us to share some information with us about pesticides and why it's so important that we get those 1 mile buffer zones near our schools. How's everybody doing? Woody, you good?
I'm good.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And Kathleen, you good?
I'm good.
Let's get right into it. You know, I have a question. Right off the start, what is the biggest dangers about pesticides and organophosphates? Why is it so important for us to learn about organophosphates and what is so dangerous about that pesticide?
Well, organophosphates are a certain category of pesticides. Some of them are insecticides, but some have other uses, and they affect a particular part of the nervous system that has to do with how the nerve cells communicate information, and they disrupt that communication. And there was a study that was done in the Salinas Valley starting about 1999, right around the time we came to Watsonville, where they followed pregnant women and their children for years. Mm-hmm. And it was looking at the impact of living near where organophosphates were used and having sometimes traces of organophosphates in the mother's blood, and how that impacted the kids. And what they showed was that a disproportionate number of those kids had learning disabilities, autism, behavior changes, more asthma, all kinds of things that were associated with that exposure. And this wasn't the only study that showed this. There were others that had similar information. So we're particularly looking at organophosphates as having long-term effects on when pregnant women are exposed on children, and possibly on the children when they're exposed as well. Besides which, some of them are acutely toxic to farm workers if they're exposed in the field.
And Kathleen, just so the listeners can get to know you, who you are, you're a lifelong advocate for human and environmental justice, over 50 years of service, former midwife, community nurse, and school nurse right here in the PVUSD. Is there anything that I left out? What else have you,
I did a lot of things in healthcare. I did go to graduate school at University of Washington and study occupational and environmental health. And as part of my graduate studies, I worked on an exposure assessment of children who lived in the orchards of eastern Washington. And it was looking at particularly organophosphates in their home environments and the places they played.
Thank you. And Woody, you're a former farm worker of 18 years in Washington State and a special education teacher of 18 years in the PVUSD district, a member of Safe Ag, Safe Schools, and a founder of and member of Cora. Also, Kathleen, you're a member of Cora.
Uh-huh.
And Woody, can you share your journey from the fields to the classroom and what led you to this fight?
Well, it was a rather roundabout route. I was a farm worker in Washington State after 60 years ago. I'd been on the Farm Workers March, La Peregrinación, with the farm workers from Delano to Sacramento, which ended on April 10th, 1966. It was a big moment for a 19-year-old college dropout like me. That stayed in my mind. I didn't know that 6 years later I'd move up to Washington State. I would be a farm worker myself. I would work in glutathione and parathione, which are organophosphates, which they said were safe. They've since been banned for several years in all of the United States. So there was a learning curve there, and I learned to be a little bit suspicious and skeptical about the guarantees that pesticides were safe if you just followed the label.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Woody. And are you there, Yaneli?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Yaneli, you're a longtime advocate, former Greenfield City Council member, working with the Safe Ag, Safe Schools, and California Pesticides Reform, and part of the team behind the Spray Days website. Can you tell us a little bit about Spray Days and why is community notification important?
Yes, so thank you. Hi, Woody. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, Yaneli.
So basically, Spray Days came about because of community advocacy. So many people, including Kathleen and Woody, worked on this for many years. And so now folks have the right to know. For a year now, actually, you could sign up on Spray Days, just visiting the DPR website and selecting one address or up to 10 of whether you want to find out what pesticides are being applied near your home, school, work, you name it. And you get alerts ahead of time before the application actually happens, and then it will be on you to know how to protect yourself, your family, and it's been going great. I think people need to understand it's not perfect because we're still missing the exact location. It's only restricted pesticides, but a lot of the feedback that I've been hearing from communities, especially in farm working communities, is that at least now they have some sort of tool at their hand that they could utilize to protect themselves, to educate themselves and their families when it comes to pesticide exposure. And a lot of the conversation has been great with many folks, including you, Omar, Kathleen, Woody, making sure that people understand what spray days are, what pesticides are being applied. Educating that has even made it a bigger movement where new people that have never really been in contact with environmental justice are taking action and are signing up and are making those questions, asking those questions. What is methamil? What is 1,3-D? What is, you name it. And again, making sure that we hold ag commissioners and DPR accountable.
It's such a powerful tool too, because not only are people getting notified when they're spraying these chemicals, but they're also getting the description of the chemicals. And I know not all chemicals are being put onto this app. They're not all on the list of dangerous chemicals that are being notified. So that's something that the movement is working to get more of these dangerous chemicals on that list, so people are notified and exact location. And I think there's another thing also, the NOIs. Can you tell us a little bit about the NOIs, please? Anybody?
Yeah, I can talk about NOIs. So NOI means notice of intent. It means that the ag commissioner needs to get some extra paperwork and approve the use of a particular pesticide that's on the list of pesticides that require this, and that the person who applies it has to have the right paperwork in place and the right licenses to do that. The ironic thing about the notices of intent was that when they were making the list, Department of Pesticide Regulation, they were looking at chemicals because of their environmental effects and not as much because of their human health effects. So some of the chemicals that are on there because they get into water. Some of them are on there. Some of the chemicals that are on there are not even allowed to be used in California anymore. And some of the chemicals that we're most concerned about, like most of the organophosphates, are not on the list. The fumigants are all on there because they're all toxic air contaminants, and that puts them in the easy to drift category. But as we all agree, it's a list of only some, And it's not a complete list of everything that's being applied that we're concerned about.
So it still needs some work
It does.
to be perfected.
It does.
And I don't know if perfected is the right term, but to be better informative for the community.
Yes, we're actually asking that all organophosphates be included in the list of pesticides that require notices of intent because of their risk to pregnant women.
And Woody, you as a farmer, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the structural problems with Department of Pesticide Regulation is they license pest control advisors. And pest control advisors are paid. They get a commission on the pesticides they prescribe. It would be like doctors getting paid for prescribing medications, which in the old days and to some extent still persists. That's a system that just doesn't work for the people. It works against human health. It works against the interests of phasing out dangerous pesticides because they keep prescribing them. There are a few pest control advisors who charge a fee and work independently of that commission system. But the vast majority, a PCA just told me last week, they receive commissions. They kickbacks for prescribing these organophosphates, for prescribing these fumigants. And it's a rotten system that needs to be looked at and changed.
And people need to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Woody. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to KSQD Santa Cruz, KSQT Prundale, and radio by the people, never artificial, always intelligent. Either we stand together or we fall separately. Community matters. Free speech matters. Solidarity and the rule of law matter. Democracy matters. Real people doing real radio, conveying real information matter. In an area where mainstream media has caved in, KSQD will stay strong. You're listening KSQD Santa Cruz, KSQT Prundale, and you're on From the Streets with your host Omar Dieguez, and we have special guests in the studio. But I want to give a food of thought for the public that's listening. I want to speak directly to the people listening, and if you live near fields, if your children go to school near agriculture, this affects you. Pay attention to spray days alerts. Please look into that website. It gives a lot of information. Speak at local meetings. Protect your family, and uplift the people that are out there advocating every day for these harmful pesticides to be being sprayed near schools, especially because a lot of our children are being exposed. A lot of our elders in the elder community are being exposed. Yaneli, you on the phone with us still?
Yes, I'm here.
Yaneli, what do you want to tell us about spray days? Like, this is your moment to give us some kind of education on spray days and what the movement's been doing to stop pesticides being sprayed near schools.
Okay. Well, I can't say it enough. Like, spray days is a tool to empower community members, and I know that many people in decision-making positions don't like that. We just met with Ag Commissioner Hidalgo from Monterey County, 2 weeks ago? Omar, you were there at the meeting. And if you recall, his specific statement was, spray days was created to inform the public, not alarm the public. We don't want them to be alarmed. And I had to correct him, and that's what I want the community to understand, your listeners. It is supposed to alarm folks, because what we're being exposed to, like Kathleen mentioned, Woody has mentioned, you have mentioned, Omar, we are being poisoned, disproportionately affected because of these harmful pesticides. So we should be alarmed. And so with spray days is validating our feelings, our concerns, but also empowering us to take action, to make sure that we hold those in power accountable. So if I know that there was a pesticide application and it had to do with spray days or it did not have to do with spray days, then I would know my right to ask the Ag Commissioner's office for a investigation because of a possible drift incident. And that's something that just happened over the weekend. And again, it's because of the amazing work that all the amazing staff members have been doing with all of you three in the studio right now, of informing the public, of having them sign up for spray days. I got an alert. I got a message from a woman who, just by hearing everything on social media, she decided to sign up for spray days. And she was woken up Saturday morning because of stomach pain, chest pain, and it was not just her, it was her and her two children. And she looked up her spray days alert, and it said that methanol was applied. And so when she called the Ag Commissioner's office and said, I have the spray days alert, this is what was sprayed, this is the ingredient, I'm not feeling well, my kids are not feeling well, and to have somebody from the Ag Commissioner's office tell her that, no, you're incorrect, that is not being applied, that is not part of spray days, then we have more leverage to make sure that things are done correctly and hold them accountable, because methanol is part of spray days. And what the woman was doing, what this mom was doing, was exactly what I would do and anybody else would do. Would be that if my child is being affected, I'm going to ask for a report. I'm going to ask for an investigation, because I, at that moment, am a victim of a pesticide drift. And so that's the type of empowering mechanism that spray days has created. It really has given a voice to the community. So yeah, I'm very passionate about it. Yeah. Again, it's not perfect, but it's a tool.
And Yaneli, just so the listeners know, like this meeting with Hidalgo that was held at the Ag Commissioner in Monterey County, how long did it take for you guys to get that meeting with him? And how long did he give you in that meeting? I just want to point these things out, because this is something that's it's hurting our community, and I thought it was very disrespectful, the amount of time that he gave for that meeting, and I also thought it was very disrespectful that it took this long to sit down and finally have that conversation with this man.
Yeah, so we had asked for a meeting every year like we usually do with both Ag Commissioners, but for the past 2 years, he refused to meet with us. This is the Monterey County Ag Commissioner. Up until just recently that we did meet with him, and he only gave us half an hour of a meeting. And so with half an hour, you can't really cover a lot. But I think we were we just deliver what we needed to deliver. These are our demands. These are the packets that we need you to continue to read. We will continue to hold you accountable. We will continue to uplift our communities, and we will continue to fight for these environmental injustices that we're currently living in.
Thank you, Yaneli. And just to recap that comment, when I made the comment about how many notifications I got on spray days, it was like over 80 notifications in 1 month, sometimes up to 3 times a day. And then his response was, it's not meant to alarm people. It is alarming. It is alarming to find out that we're being exposed to pesticides over 80 times in 1 month, sometimes up to 3 times a day. So, it is alarming. And for him to not validate people's feelings, people's concerns, was very disrespectful. Woody, I know you have a wealth of information. I can see you over there. You want to say something? Go for it. The mic is yours.
You could see me chomping at the bit, I guess.
Yes.
Well, I was a special ed teacher in Pajaro Valley Unified for 18 years. And I noticed my children, to qualify, they had learning disabilities. There were other disabilities involved. Some of them were autistic. These are things that are linked strongly through the 25-year UC Berkeley School of Public Health Chamaco study in the Salinas Valley. And I did not know about these things until I retired 9 years ago. Then I started studying that, looking at that study and other studies, which showed a strong link. It's hard to claim causation, direct causation, because there are so many variables out there. But strong associations, strong links between organophosphates and learning disabilities, autism, ADD, ADHD. It's alarming. I just want to go through. We have a new tool, a mapping tool by school districts. It only goes it goes 7 years, from 2017 to 2023. In our school district, Pajaro Valley Unified, a total of 14,686,000 pounds of total pesticides were applied over a 7-year period. That averages out to more than 2 million pounds per year.
2 million pounds per year.
And we have, is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, and the bulk of those are the fumigants. The fumigants, for some reason, even though they're gases, they're put in liquid or granular form into the soil, and they weigh a lot. But there's a lot. You have the weight of the fumigants.
Yes, but I just want to break it down. There were 152,000 pounds of organophosphates applied during that period. 152,000. And by the way, when we've looked at this tool through all the school districts in the Central Coast, we have not found any school district that has had greater totals than this of pesticides.
And let's point out that Monterey County and Santa Cruz County has a high volume of I'm sorry, I'm blinking out. We have a high volume of kids or youth that are suffering from cancer in our area. Throughout the state of California, Watsonville, Pajaro Valley, and Monterey County have the highest levels of childhood cancer, the highest levels of children suffering from learning disabilities, asthma, stuff like that.
It's really hard to come up with those numbers because of the way the data is collected. And one thing to remember is that the Pajaro Valley is in 2 counties. So we have kids from Monterey County and kids from Santa Cruz County. But I think, it's important to remember that there are all different kinds of pesticides in use, and there are all different modes of exposure, and we don't really know how all these different chemicals interact with each other. That's something that's been studied very little. So like the sensitive periods, like during pregnancy, the long-term effects, like over your whole childhood or your whole life, and the combination of all the different chemicals, all those different things could be having impact on cancer rates or respiratory illness rates, or some of the neurological things that come up, like, for example, in older people, more Parkinson's is associated with certain pesticide exposures. All those things together. So we I found out when we were fighting against this one organophosphate, chlorpyrifos, that it was just going to take too long to knock them down one at a time. So now in our campaign, we're grouping them together, and we're like, excuse me, we want to more restrictions, and we want to phase out all the organophosphates. We want to phase out all the fumigants. We don't want to just try and knock them down one at a time. We want to group them together.
Woody.
And it's really about time to do that. In October 2017, UCLA Law Blue Ribbon Panel called for phasing out and banning organophosphates worldwide. That was 9 years ago, and it was roundly ignored by our Department of Pesticide Regulation. And it just goes on, because one thing, it's kind of like being a ninja fighting a battle when you're blinded to your opponent, because the ag, big chem, big ag, big oil, which makes pesticides and plastics, they have huge lobbies. We're rarely in the same room with them. Occasionally at hearings in Sacramento, we run into their lawyers. You can always tell who they are because they have suits and they look pretty ornery. But we're not really. That's the hidden influencers that we're dealing with in big ag, big chem, and big oil, and they have enormous influence in the state capital as well as the national capital.
Thank you, Woody. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to KSQD Santa Cruz, KSQT Prundale. We're going to hit it with a little song and we'll come right back. You're listening to From the Streets with your host, Omar Dieguez. And we're having a great conversation about pesticide. And this is about environmental justice. This is about environmental racism. This is about farm workers' dignity. This is about future generations to come. This is about Mother Earth and the way we treat her. This is about the water that is so precious. How are we taking care of that water for our future generations to have clean water? How are we taking care of that land to be able to protect Mother Earth? And being indigenous, it is so important to the indigenous community that we take care of that land. And these harmful pesticides are not doing that. I want to ask all of you a question, because I think what people don't understand about advocating for something that you're so passionate about, you know, the work that it takes to be an advocate, to be an activist, you know, you have to sacrifice a lot. You have to be consistent, show up for the community. I want to ask all three of you this question, if you guys can answer in any order. What was that moment that made you decide that this is something that I'm passionate about? This is something that I want to fight for. What was that moment? And we'll start with Woody, and then we'll go with Yaneli and end with Kathleen.
Well, you know, I was fishing around for information, and there's an outfit called Kiss the Ground, which offered a 5-day online workshop with someone named Finian Makepeace. And he was excellent, and I learned a lot about carbon sequestration in healthy soil and how that is one big solution to climate change, because plants, through photosynthesis, they take water and carbon dioxide, that greenhouse gas, they make sugars out of it, for the plant does with photosynthesis, but those sugars it also shares with healthy soil microbes. And in exchange, those microbes, they provide nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and trace minerals through the rootlets of the plant. So using healthy soil as a conduit for greenhouse gas reduction and feeding plants. This is what Dick Pichotte does. He says, I feed the soil with compost and other amendments, and the soil feeds the plants. When you use fumigants and pesticides, the soil becomes an inert rooting medium, and then you have to pump in all these fossil fuel pesticides.
Yeah. So that study is what made you passionate about.
Yeah, and there are films which are readily available online. Kiss the Ground and Common Ground.
That's the name of the film?
Yes.
Kiss the Ground. We're going to have to look it up.
Actually doing it. We showed Common Ground at the Rio a couple years ago.
Okay.
Maybe 3 Octobers ago with a full house. Yeah. And it was they do excellent work. Yeah, in bringing real living examples of organic living soils farmers and how they got off the chemical treadmill.
Thank you. Yaneli, what made you passionate about the work that you're doing?
So I think, first of all, and I shared it in the past, having my oldest suffer an asthma attack at the age of 10 because of the close proximity to the ag field to his school, really did kind of like initiate that fire of, you know, I need to speak up. I'm a mama bear. I'm going to be a strong advocate for my child. But what about the rest of the moms that are silent, the moms that are quiet because the system tells them to be quiet, that they're not supposed to be speaking out of line, right? So I think that was part of the fire. But now, the more that I look into this, having folks in SAS like Kathleen, like Woody, like you, obviously, Omar, that have so much going on with life that we could be anywhere right now, but we're here volunteering our own time to speak up regarding this issue, because if we don't speak up, it's going to continue as a cycle of abuse. And with us speaking up right now and being away from our own families and sometimes not even prioritizing our health because we're so passionate about the movement, has really inspired others to join the movement, or at least others to speak up about the environmental injustices happening in their community currently right now. So that is my inspiration, my SAS family.
And it's when you're an activist, sometimes you forget to make that time for yourself and to really take care of yourself. I know I found out the hard way. I was on the verge of a burnout. And if it wasn't for me going to college, I was taking a counseling class. And when the teacher talked about burnout and she gave a list of the checklist, if you're experiencing this, I checked every single box, and I'm like, wow, that's what's going on with me. We forget about taking care of ourselves and making time for ourselves. So, we're not perfect. It's something that I learned in school and now I'm working on it. But thank you for sharing that, Yaneli. Kathleen, what made you passionate about the work that we do?
Well, first I want to thank you, Nellie, for giving me a good excuse for not doing my housework. My history with pesticides goes way back. Mm-hmm. So I have these touch points along the way. Mm-hmm. And I will disclose that my dad worked for a shell development company, and his company was, after World War II, figuring out what to do with all this fossil fuel, and making pesticides was one of the things they did. But when I was a kid, my reaction was, oh, they really smell bad. But the thing that I remember was I was a hippie living in a hippie commune in the hills. I worked for a small newspaper, and I was a writer for that newspaper. And at that time, the Vietnam War had ended, and there were all these vets coming back. And those of us who are old enough to remember Agent Orange. Agent Orange was spread in the jungles of Vietnam to remove the cover for the Vietnamese, but it did great damage and is still doing harm to the people of Vietnam. And at the time that I was writing for the paper, they were going to spray Agent Orange in the forests.
Wow.
Along the forest roads for weeds, for weed control. And I remember this vet came to us and he was like, I have liver damage, I have chloracne, I'm going to die from this stuff. Don't let them spray it on your forest. So we actually did organize and protest, and they ended up changing their plan. But it gave me this awareness of chemical exposure, not just pesticides, but the chemicals they used in the early days of Silicon Valley, all kinds of things like that who gets impacted by the most hazardous chemicals in our environment. So pesticides kept coming up as part of that, and I would think probably a turning point for me was when I was working on that exposure assessment, and the spray plane went over, and we were all splattered with organophosphates. And I still have a twitch in my finger from that day. So
and people are still being exposed like that. People would think that that doesn't happen anymore.
No, we're lucky in in Santa Cruz County. We don't have the spray planes that they have in Monterey County and out in the San Joaquin
And people
Valley.
are still out there working in the fields while those planes are flying over spraying.
Yes.
And you touched on a very important note. You you reminded me of organophosphates. Is related to some of the chemicals that the Nazis used in the gas chambers to kill people.
Yes, organophosphates are related to those chemicals.
And yet we're using them to grow our crops. How does that explain that to me? Who thought that was something smart?
Well, they were originally noticed as being something that had a really strong flavor and had or smell and had an effect on the person that was experimenting with them, and then the kind of the insecticide and the poisonous gas use kind of developed together, and then during World War II, of course, the gases were developed by both sides, not just by the Germans.
Right.
And after the war, they had already done all this development on these chemicals, and it turned out that the book DDT, or the book Silent Spring had come out, and DDT was being phased out, so the organophosphates came in to replace DDT. And do you know, in the early days of Watsonville, what they used on the orchards for?
Methamil?
No.
Or what was it?
Lead arsenate.
Oh, yes, lead arsenate.
Lead
Yes,
arsenate, yes. Ortho Chemical was founded in Watsonville. It later became Monsanto or Dow, I forget which one. And they sprayed the trees, the apple trees, with lead and arsenic to kill the bugs. So it's like you go from one thing to another, and when you find out that's bad, then you just move on to the next thing, when actually the healthy practices for gardening, for farming, those are the ones that can replace a lot of the chemicals without having to rely on anything highly toxic. And that's why Woody wants to talk about healthy soil.
I do.
Hold on, Woody, before you go on, I got to say that, Woody and Kathleen are a couple, and it's funny to sit here and watch because Woody's over there, he's kind of like tapping her, like, hey, let me talk. And he's over there raising his hand at me, like, hey, I want to say something. But, you guys, I hope you don't mind me saying this. You guys, how old are you going to turn, Woody? I want people to know.
I will be 80 this year.
80 years old.
And I don't want to wait to see these changes till I'm pushing up daisies. I want to see them in my lifetime for our grandchildren. And so there's, just like when I was on the Farm Workers March and I was 19, I have a sense of urgency, but it's at the other end of the spectrum. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but there's that sense of activism and urgency because you reach a point where you're not going to live forever and you realize it. So you have to live differently and try to get things done. So,
well, before you move on with your comment, thank you, both you, Kathleen, and Woody, for the years of advocacy against pesticide, for all the hard work. And every time I sit in a meeting with you, it's easy to be quiet and learn so much information from you. So thank you for all the years of advocacy and all the hard work that you guys put into.
Thank you for your hunger strike for 30 days in September. That really raised awareness for all of these issues.
Yes.
I just want to talk for a moment about soil rotation.
Go ahead.
And what's happening with fumigants is they can grow the same thing year after year in the same place, the same raspberries or strawberries, and they wear out the soil. But they keep pumping it with, artificial fertilizers. So no farmer in their right mind before fumigants would try doing that because you do wear out the soil. And you start getting things like Fusarium wilt 2, these superbugs that develop even in fumigated soils. So I want to see us go back to crop rotation. You can grow brassicas, which have natural sulfur. You can harvest them like Tom Brose of Live Earth Farm. And then you plow under the plants. It sulfurizes the soil. It's not foolproof. But then you plant pathogen-resistant varieties from UC Davis, or Driscoll's has its own proprietary varieties, and some private plant breeders do too. And then you have a pretty good shot at growing, but you have to rotate, growing organic berries, but you have to rotate soil. I will say that Miles Ryder is growing organically at Airport Road now and Green Valley Road, a big new block of organic strawberries, where previously Dick Pichot had been growing a lot of organic vegetables. That's a good sign.
It's a good sign, but what do you think? What direction is he going to move in? Is he doing that just to silence what's going on in the community?
I think he's concerned about his image in our community. My concern, and not everybody shares my point of view, but my concern is that he will kind of do the greenwashing thing in the Pajaro Valley, because so much attention has been drawn to his fields and his practices in the Pajaro Valley. But Driscoll's, not Miles Ryder per se, but Driscoll's is using bad chemicals and taking the water and taking the land in Mexican communities and in other places around the world. And they also they grow a lot of their organic berries in Baja because it's cheaper. Labor costs are lower. So it's not like they're going to do the right thing because they're going to change their whole company philosophy. I think they could do the right thing for us, but we would like to see the whole system change. And it's not like people have to eat strawberries every day of the year all over the world.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Kathleen. And Yaneli, we're going to come back with some questions for you after this little break. You're listening to KSQD Santa Cruz, KSQT Prunedale, from the streets with your host, Omar Dieguez. Yaneli, thank you for being on the show. Kathleen, thank you for being on the show. Woody, thank you for being on the show. I want to give you all an opportunity to say something that you want to say to the community out there that's listening. Whatever it is, it's your moment to say that message right now. We'll start with you, Yaneli.
Yes, I think my message would be for everyone listening is that hopefully you learn something from this hour with us, that there's so many of us giving up of our own personal time, not because we want to be troublemakers, but because we really care about human health. We care about making sure that we have our pollinators for the future, that we even have a future, that our soil is protected, like Woody mentioned, that there's a better way to grow food without harming anybody. So I think that more than anything, I just want folks to feel empowered, to feel that they could do something themselves. They could attend the meeting. They could sign a petition. They could simply give donation to this radio station that is providing such crucial information. Every single one of us could do something, even if it's something as small as just hitting the like button, but it's all on us to really make change. We are the ones that create change. Nobody else is going to come do it for us, so we all need to create change together.
Thank you, Yaneli. Powerful message. Thank you. Kathleen.
Yeah, I would reinforce that community engagement is really crucial. When you talk to the growers, when you talk to the bureaucrats, they all say, well, we're doing everything according to the rules. We're following all the rules, and that means it's safe. Well, our experience is not the same as theirs. We don't believe that we're being adequately protected, and the system is not designed for the benefit of environmental and human health as the number one priority. So we want to make sure that people engage so that they vote for politicians and vote with their dollars of the kind of food they choose to reinforce the kind of agricultural system that they want to see going forward in the future, which is based on healthy food, healthy soil, healthy communities.
Thank you, Kathleen. Woody?
I just want to mention that healthy soil is the lifeblood of communities. And healthy soil is what sequesters huge amounts of carbon as a climate mitigation strategy. I also want to mention we didn't talk about carcinogens, 2.5 million pounds of 1,3-D which is a byproduct of shell oil development. They didn't know what to do with, but they found that it made a great fumigant, and 2.5 million pounds have been applied during the 7-year period, 2017 to 2023 in our school district. It's banned in 40 countries, and it needs to be banned here.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being on the radio today. I just have one last message, to the public out there that's listening. This is a fight that is not easy, but it is sacred. This is a sacred fight because we are protecting life. We are protecting Mother Earth. Thank you for listening to From the Streets with your host, Omar Dieguez, and you're listening to KSQD Santa Cruz, KSQT Prunedale. Squiggers out there, be safe.